Welcome back. This is Business Center right here on Metropol TV. Earlier on, I had asked you a question of the day where we had asked you who are the first farmers in the world, or maybe in whatever capacity you want to put it. But now send us your comments on our Facebook, and I have some of your comments here. I'll just read some of your comments. We have Agatha kutoka Kahawa anasema, hi Kelvin, the answer has to be Egyptians. I remember the agrarian revolution tulisoma in history. Inaona ni kama umegoogle, but it's okay. Agatha kutoka Kahawa, thank you so much. And now we are joined by Mwangi Kimuri, who is an agriculture reporter at Kilimo News. He's just here to delve deeper into this topic of today, where we are just going to talk about farming and what you need to know about farming. Welcome, Mr. Mwangi. How are you?
I'm fine, Kelvin.
You're fine?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Now, let us just delve into it. How do you identify which crops are best for farming?
Well, Kevin, there are various factors to consider, because once it depends with the area where you are, depends even with your market target. So, you can't just farm something. If in farming commercially, you have to first have a market for what you want to farm. So that one will determine the type of crop you want to delve in. The costs that will incur is another factor that you will consider. And also you have also to consider the time that a particular crop will take to mature, so that at least you can get the returns that you want. So there are various factors that you must consider.
All right, and you've spoken about you must identify a market. At what point do you start to consider the market price and how you're going to sell a certain commodity that you planted?
Well, Kevin, the issue of market is a very tricky one, because there are various factors and many forces that determine the market, especially the prices. Yeah? And one mistake that farmers make is planting something. Well, you don't have a market. You can't just go and plant something and you don't know where you're going to sell it. That is one mistake that farmers make. So it's advisable to first have a market before you even plant, so that at least you know when it is mature, or when it has become of age where you're going to sell it. Like now you meet somebody with 2,000 heads of vegetables or cabbages on the farm. They are nearing maturing age, but the farmer doesn't know where to take them. What will happen is that those guys, they call brokers, they will just come with their price, and because they know the cabbages will not stay on the farm for long before they start rotting. So they just offer any price that they want to offer that to that farmer. So it is very advisable to farmers to first look for a market before you plant something, know where to sell. Another thing that determines the prices is even the supply and demand. Sometimes you have an oversupply of something, and like there's a time that is an oversupply of tomatoes, and when you go to the market, the price is very low, which means the farmer doesn't get a lot of money. When the tomatoes are scarce, or any other crop, you get a good market price for the farmer. So there are various sources or various factors that determine the market. But as a farmer, don't plant something if you don't know where you're going to sell it.
All right, and you find that many people just plant crops, or maybe plant various commodities in order for them to sustain themselves in the household. Is this really, what can you advise a farmer who wants just to plant and then they want to supply it where they live, around the place where they live, or they want to just help themselves food-wise? What would you advise a farmer like that? Because you find that many people just plant because they want to not to go and buy from the market. What would you advise a farmer like that at this time?
Yeah, if you're planting something for local consumption or for your own use in your home, you just need to know what you're supposed to plant in that area. You know, you might want to plant something, but it doesn't do well in your area. So it's also good to do some research or background research to know if what you want to plant for local consumption can do well in your area. Another thing is ask yourself the costs of nurturing that plant until you start harvesting vis-a-vis the price of buying. Sometimes you get people who are planting something, and when you try to calculate the price of what they're incurring or the costs they are incurring in production, it even comes more than what they used to buy. So it is also good to look at that, and also it is also good to look at the fact at other factors like what are you going to use when it comes to rain. Water for irrigation. Are you going to use to assuming that you are not selling from outside? Yes.
Mr. Mwangi, can you just repeat? We couldn't get you a bit on when you were talking about rain. Can you really just repeat that point on rain? We couldn't get you clearly.
Yes. I was saying that when you're planting, even for local consumption, you need to consider if you're going to use water that you have, or you're going to use irrigation to plant what you want to plant, or you are going to wait for rain. Because if you're going to wait for rain, that means that you can just plant at a certain point during the rainy season. But if you've got some water in your farm or around your home that you can use to irrigate whatever you want to plant for home use, that means you can have a constant supply, because when using water, you can be able even to plant in various stages, meaning that at each particular time, you have something that you're getting from your shamba.
All right. Thank you so much for that. And what type of soil is good for various types of crops? And and is soil pH contributing into this?
Yeah, Kevin, that is another issue that is ailing our farmers today, because people just assume that any soil you can plant anything anywhere and it does well, which is a completely opposite. Most people don't go for soil tests. It's always good to have your soil tested, so that at least you can know whatever you need to do if you want to plant a particular crop. So farmers are advised, or farmers are encouraged to conduct a soil test. And these days, soil tests have become very cheap. It's not like the earlier days when they were a bit costly. Today, a soil test in your farm is very cheap. So it's good if you want to plant something. Say you want to plant some potatoes, just do a soil test, have a soil test conducted on your soil, and then you'll be advised from the results that maybe the soil is too acidic. You need to add some lime to bring the acidity down. You need to add some manure. You need to add some fertilizer, such. But if you just go planting anyhow, anywhere, assuming everything will be well, you'll make a mistake, and it might be costly.
All right, and you've spoken about fertilizer. Can you really just let the viewer really learn and understand what type of fertilizer you need to use? Because you find that many people use fertilizers even for over a year. The fertilizer that you bought in January, you're still using it up to maybe the next year. And is there a specific time when you're supposed to use the fertilizer, or is it just used at any time?
Well, Kevin, like you're saying, we have this mentality that you can use fertilizer just anyhow you want. But to be honest, there's a particular fertilizer for planting. Mostly people plant using DAP. When it comes to top dressing, when they are top dressing, mostly we use CAN. But the other factors that you should know, what I said there before, it also depends with the type of soil. Depends with the type of soil, so that you can know which fertilizer to apply. You don't just apply any fertilizer just like that. So a farmer needs to consult an expert, an agricultural officer. Today we have county agricultural officers. It's also good to consult so that you can know the type of fertilizer that you're supposed to apply. Again, there are various fertilizers that are good for a particular crop. So it's good to get that advice, not just going to any shop and buying any fertilizer.
And just sticking on this fertilizer issue, there has been global warming for a very long time, and it's being a major factor in the change in weather patterns. And you find that many people now don't know when to plant or when not to plant, because you find that, for example, we used to know that August is the time when people usually maybe harvest maize, and then there are seasons where you find that different crops are planted, and these days weather patterns have really changed, therefore making people to even use fertilizers where it's not possible. Can you just speak to us about this global warming and how the weather patterns, a farmer can maneuver through the weather patterns?
Thank you, Kevin. When we talk about the global warming and climate change, it has really affected farming because, for one, right now we cannot even predict correctly when the rains will come, unlike there before. When I was growing up, I remember during the rainy season, especially this season, I remember my mom would tell me that on 10th, it is going to rain. And I'm telling you, most times on that 10th or 15th or whatever date she told me, it would rain. But this has changed. You see, even now when people are expecting rain, sometimes it doesn't rain, sometimes you don't get enough rain. So it is a challenge. What I would advise farmers is it is good to get information. You know, Kevin, what has ailed farmers a lot is the lack of enough information, because farmers are not getting the information that they need. And I would urge them to make use of the agricultural extension officers in the counties. I mean, these officers are there, they're employed by the counties, and their work is to advise these farmers. Although they are very few, we have had a problem of extension. They are very few, and it is all over Africa, not only in Kenya. So when it comes to issues of global warming and changing weather patterns, these farmers should consult these officers, these experts, so that they can be advised. Now, because the weather has changed, because the climate has changed, don't plant this crop, try with this other one, because that is how they are going to learn, and eventually they will adapt to the changing conditions. Because if they just plant according to how they were doing there before, without considering that we have that climate change, there's going to be a challenge. Although another challenge that is there is that mostly in Kenya, we depend on rain-fed agriculture. So you see, the farmers are just waiting for rain, and when we don't have enough, we have a problem. So it's always good for farmers to consult, so that at least they can know how to mitigate against the changes of global warming and climate change.
All right. You spoke about governing bodies in the counties. What has been the role of these bodies in the counties, and do they have measures that they put forward in order to make sure that farmers really get to learn what they need to do during such a period?
Like I said, in the counties we have the agriculture extension officers, whose job is to advise farmers and make sure that farming is going on well as it is supposed to be. But like I said, there are very few these days. So mostly you even find farmers out there who don't even know like these farmers exist, and they don't get the right information. But I can assure you where they are, and farmers have consulted them. Agriculture is doing so well in those sites because their their expertise, their advice has helped these farmers a lot. I mean, the extension officers in the field, they're so good because they know that area. They are attached to that locality. So they can be able to advise the farmers that a particular crop does well here. A particular crop will not do well here. In this area, we don't have enough rainfall. In this area, there's a lot of rainfall. So don't plant this crop because too much rain will not be good for this crop. So what I can say is we have a challenge on because the extension officers are very few, but the few that are there, they are doing well. But when we say that, we have others. We have other avenues where the farmers can get this advice. Like now, most people, even I can tell you, most people now, farmers are turning even to social media. They are turning to the internet, even to get this information. But the problem is, Kevin, some of this information may be from the internet or from the social media. Social media may not be the right information, because sometimes it might be just a farmer who is giving a personal experience of what he or she has done, but it might not be the correct way. So what I can say is these bodies are there, even from the national government, and they are helping farmers where they can. But as I was saying, it's the ratio of these officers in these bodies and in the counties to the farmers, they are very few.
All right, Mr. Mwangi, now we just have to make this a wrap, but I'm going to ask you the last question so that you may advise people. Now, is farming a profitable and sustainable source of income, especially during this time of COVID-19? Just advise a farmer who has given up and said, this is not a source of income for me.
Well, thank you, Kevin. What I can tell farmers who've gotten into farming commercially is don't just farm or don't just get into farming just because your friend is doing it. Don't start planting tomatoes because your friend planted tomatoes na sasa ameomoka. And now you say because my friend ameomoka na tomatoes, in my shamba sipandi kitu ingine, I'll just plant potatoes. So it's for you to do it professionally, do it how it is supposed to be done. Get advice from the correct experts. Don't just go planting because you want to show that you can also farm. No. Secondly, like I said, don't plant anything before you know where you're going to sell it, because you're going to incur some losses. So, and another thing, get into farming with an open mind. You would agree with me, even in any kind of business, there are losses and there are profits. When you get into agribusiness, get ready to get good profits, but also prepare sometimes to get some losses, because there are even other natural events that occur that will just lead to losses. So get into farming with an open mind. But I can assure you, farming done well, practiced well, with a good plan, the good timing, is a source of good income, and people are getting money from agriculture.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Mwangi Kimuri. He's an agriculture reporter from Kilimo News. He has just joined us today. Thank you so much, sir. And you've really delved into this issue, and I hope that we are going to follow whatever you've told us. Remember, our question of the day is who were the first farmers? Sorry for that. Who are the first farmers? Send us your comments on our Facebook. We are live at Metropol TV KE. And when we come back, we're going to go into agro commodities. We're going for a short break. We'll be right back.